5 is that high protein diet like paleo is dangerous because it wrecks your kidneys and it increases your risk of cancer, right? So we've heard this has come up a lot recently in the media. What's true about it is, if we stretch a little and try to establish that common ground, what's true is that high protein diets can be harmful for people with pre-existing kidney disease, all right? And of course, that doesn't mean that they're harmful for people that are healthy and don't have kidney problems. I mean, by the same logic, iron and iron-rich foods like red meat should be avoided if you have hemochromatosis, which is a disease that causes aggressive iron storage and can kill you if you're not careful. But you don't hear people going around saying everyone shouldn't eat red meat because of the tendency to accumulate iron. And that's the same argument that's being made here. High-protein diets can harm people with kidney problems, therefore nobody should eat a high-protein diet. It's not logical. It doesn't make sense. And I think part of the confusion is that in some studies, it has been observed that with a very high-protein diet, you'll see hyperfiltration. So the kidney is working more actively to do what it does, filter out stuff that is in the blood. And you'll see an increase in the size and function of glomeruli, which are the functional units of the kidney. But so when this was first observed, people thought that this was pathological. But it turns out that these are just adaptive changes. This is essentially like when you work out and your muscles get bigger. This is essentially what's happening with the kidney with a high-protein diet. It's just increasing its capacity to deal with the higher protein diet. There's nothing pathological about it. We also have gold standard randomized clinical trials with very high protein diets in healthy people that show no evidence of harm at all. So what about the idea that diets that are high in animal protein specifically contribute to cancer? Of course, we see this in the China study. Many of you may have seen this recent news headline that high protein diets are as harmful for us as cigarettes. I got about 1 million emails after that one, as you can imagine. And this one is actually a little more complicated. There may be some truth to this, and I don't think we can just dismiss the finding outright. As usual, the devil is in the details, and if there's one person that's really good at exploring the details, it's Denise Minger. So she wrote an article about this that if you really want to geek out and go into a lot of depth, I highly recommend it. I'm just going to summarize some of the main concepts, which I've also talked about on my blog for the last several years. And so the first observation or idea was that if we increase our total protein intake, that increases levels of something called IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1, which in turn promotes the growth of cancer cells. Okay? That was then later revised to the hypothesis that it's not total protein intakes that matter, but the amount of methionine that we ingest that raises IGF-1 and increases the risk of cancer. Now, methionine is an amino acid that's found primarily in lean proteins, so like lean meats or egg whites or skim dairy, for example. And this is what this study showed. It showed that diets that were high in methionine, which is an amino acid found in lean animal products, can increase the risk of cancer. Okay? So, and the studies were well done. We can't, we're not attacking these studies in terms of their methodological errors like we often do. This was a fairly legitimate study, legitimate finding. But the question is, what if there's a way to mitigate or cancel out the potentially harmful effects of high methionine diets without restricting methionine intake? And it turns out that there is. Glycine, which is another amino acid that, unlike methionine, tends to be found in the odd bits of the animal. So the skin, the cartilage, the bone, the tougher, more gelatinous cuts of meat, in bone broth, for example, things like oxtail, shanks, chuck roast, brisket, pig's feet, chicken feet, all of these more gelatinous cuts that we get when we eat from nose to tail are rich in glycine, and glycine balances out the effects of methionine. And in fact, some studies have shown that increasing glycine intake has the same life-extending, health-promoting effects as restricting methionine. And that's not even considering other supportive nutrients that help balance out methionine and complement its roles, like vitamin B6, vitamin B12, folate, vitamin A, and choline. And guess what? All of these nutrients are also found in the odd bits, like the organs and these tougher, more gelatinous cuts of meat. So if you are a paleo purist and you really want to be hardcore paleo, you need to be eating the whole animal. Because I guarantee you, our ancestors didn't kill an animal and say, can you hand me the lean cut? I don't really like fat. Or, they weren't carving up boneless, skinless chicken breast and eating that. In fact, some of the cultures that we studied would throw the lean meat to the dogs. So when they killed an animal, they would eat the organs, the brain, the fatty tissues, and they would just toss the lean meat to the dogs. So this is a reason that we want to eat from nose to tail. It's not just, culinary pleasure is part of it, but it's why I'm always reminding people about the organs and the odd bits, because this can protect us from these potentially adverse effects of high lean protein